Hey guys, Pastor Josh here. Hope you're doing well. Can't wait to see you. Obviously, today is July 1st. I was anticipating being able to be back together tonight. Unfortunately, though, due to circumstances beyond our control, we cannot do that. But I am excited to be able to share a quick devotion with you. I also want to let you know of a couple things that we do have coming up. Tomorrow night on the Greenway, 6:30, we're going to play Ultimate Frisbee. It's supposed to be great weather. We're going to gather together, just hang out for a little bit. We'll have drinks. We'll have the opportunity to go back to Baskin Robbins. That was so much fun last week. So bring some money. We're going to hang out for a couple of hours, play Ultimate on the Greenway, and just fellowship a little bit. So I hope to see you there. Also, this Sunday, we need volunteers, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. If you're able to volunteer for either one of our services on Sunday, please let me know, and I will get you signed up. And then next Wednesday night, we are having what we call a parking lot party, a PRCYM parking lot party. We'll hang out. We'll play different games. We'll have maybe some competitions, and we'll just have a good time. So be on the lookout for announcements coming for those upcoming events, and do whatever you can to be there because we want to see you. And as we jump into a devotion tonight, this word that I'm getting ready to share on has been so relevant in my mind and so prominent, and it's just has kept coming back to me. And it's this word of faithful. And God has really charged my heart over the past couple of weeks and asked me this question: am I faithful in every area that He's entrusted me with? Am I faithful in every area of my walk with Him? And I want to turn that question to you tonight. Are you faithful in every area that God has given you and He has entrusted you with, in every area in your relationship with God? And before you kind of roll your eyes and say, you know what, that's almost impossible, I know how difficult it is. I understand how difficult it is to remain faithful in a relationship with God, because we feel like there are so many things that we have to do. We feel like there are so many rules that we have to live by and go by. And we feel like there are so many standards that we have to uphold. And yes, that is also true. But I love what Timothy writes in 2 Timothy chapter 2. Let me read it really quick for you. He says, if we are faithless, then He remains faithful because He cannot disown Himself. If we are faithless in the times that we are faithless, God is still faithful because He cannot disown Himself. So as a little bit of an encouragement, I want you to ask yourself this question today: what areas in my relationship with God do I find myself struggling in? And you may think, well, how is that encouraging? Well, I want you to sit there and think about the areas where you may fall short, or the things that you may not be good enough in, or the things that you look at your relationship with God and you say, well, I don't do these things enough, so maybe I'm not good enough. Or maybe I'm not qualified to be a follower of Christ, or I'm not qualified to call myself a Christian. And I want you to stop right there. And this is where the encouragement comes in. You're not alone. And I can speak from my own personal life and my own personal struggles and my walk with God. There are areas where I desire to be so much stronger that I'm not there yet. But you're not alone. I think you can look back all throughout Scripture and you can realize how this scripture that Timothy has talked about in 2 Timothy, that even when we are faithless, God is faithful. You can look all the way back to the children of Israel when they're getting ready to leave the desert and go towards the promised land, and they're still finding ways to complain. That even when they were faithless right there, not trusting God to deliver, He still delivered them to the promised land. And then you fast forward to the New Testament where Jesus and the disciples, these were hand-picked men chosen by God Himself, and they still found ways to let Jesus down. And I think that's so important that we look at these examples and we say, you know what, we may not be there yet, but we're still working. That even when we're faithless, God is still faithful. And I may not be where I want to be yet, but I know that God is leading me. If you will allow God to lead you, this is where the ability to remain faithful in Him and in your walk with Him becomes available. And you know, it all starts with you. It all starts with a decision. It starts with me saying, you know what, I want to be faithful. I want to be committed. We just talked about that a few weeks ago. Remaining committed even when the times are difficult, even when the times don't seem right, and when it doesn't feel like it's going to work, or it doesn't feel like it's worth it. Remaining faithful is so important. And there's a passage in the book of James that I think speaks to the reason of why we remain faithful in a relationship with God, and why we do what we do, and why it's so important to stay steadfast in your relationship with Him. And it says, blessed is the man who remains faithful under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love Him. And that's the thing, and that's why it's so important in your walk with God and your devotion to God and staying faithful in your relationship with Him. It's so important to remain faithful because of the promises that we are giving. I don't know about you, but the promises that God has given me, I know they're only going to come by my faithfulness, by me staying committed and staying faithful to God and staying committed to God and staying on the path that I know that He set out for me. And as I bring this to a close, if this is you, if you've made it this far in the devotion, I think that you can sit here, and if you're being honest with yourself, I'm sitting here and I'm beginning to think of things right now as I'm videoing this devotion. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, you could think of things of where you were not as faithful in your walk with Him as you want to be. But once again, let me remind you that you are not alone. That you're not the first person that says that, and you're not the last person, but you have opportunities to remain faithful. And I think both of these passages that we've talked about tonight have spoken so greatly to that. That even when we're faithless, God remains faithful. But when we are faithful, there is a promise that awaits us. So I want to challenge you tonight, if you've listened to it this far, to begin to think about some of the areas in your life of where you might not be as faithful as you desire to be in your walk with God. Think about the areas of where you may fall short. Or maybe you're not spending enough time in the Word. Maybe you're not spending enough time in prayer. Maybe your desire to be in church or in youth group on Wednesday nights isn't there. And I just want you to begin to pray about those things. And I believe that God will give you opportunities. If you pray for faithfulness, God will give you opportunities to be faithful. So as I close this tonight, I love you guys. I can't wait to see you. Be on the lookout for more announcements regarding our upcoming events. But don't forget, tomorrow night, 6:30 at the Greenway, Ultimate Frisbee, Baskin Robbins. We'll have other stuff out there. So can't wait to see you. I love you guys. I'm praying for you. See you soon.